It looks
Yeah, so if you want to go ahead and share your screen.
okay. We
All
ready?
righty. Yeah, I see that. And I'll go ahead and request remote control just for whenever I may need.
Okay, let me give you an overview first. Um, hmm, there we go. Okay, you see that?
Yep.
Okay, the lots, there are two lots in question here. You can see that there's one house on this lot,
Uh-huh.
and they actually own two. This is on the Shenandoah. And what they want to do is merge a part of this lot into this one. So they want to build another house. This is just a very small cottage with like a Murphy bed and stuff like that. And they want to build a bigger house. So they want to merge a part of the land that's not in the floodplain into the second lot so they can get a building permit.
Mhm.
Um, and this is the topo is for an architect, and he has designated an area in here that he wants topoed. And the owner also wanted trees located. And I've shot a bunch of topo points, and I've located the trees that we talked about. Um, and then
Yeah, now that one, Mike, you probably got because you got all the trees. Did you get them at ground level?
well, I no, I didn't shoot them for elevation because
Oh,
I
okay.
shot them with the robot reflectorlessly.
Got you. Okay.
Um, I might have two of these open now. Let me see if I do. Uh, maybe I don't.
Yeah,
Anyway, I did bring in the floodplain yesterday, and this is that's interesting. I'll need your help on that too. This line designates the floodway, which
uh-huh.
includes everything, and then this is the 100-year floodplain
Right,
elevation.
right, got you.
And wait a minute, I have more than one bell open here. I had my cataract surgery done, and let me start over here again. And I have 20/20 vision, but now I need reading glasses, which is a pain.
Oh, well. Yeah, my mom
Um,
had her cataract surgery done. She had hers adjusted. Actually, she had new lenses put in,
yeah, I did
right?
too.
And but she had one that was set for distance and one for reading.
Yeah, I probably should have done that, and I didn't.
Yeah, much like they do the LASIK and stuff like that. So, um,
Um,
yeah,
anyway, here's the area to be topoed,
right.
and this is the area that's going to be merged into this lot. Now I created another file. I did a save as and created a topo.
All right.
It's called Bell Topo drawing that you see right there.
Yep.
Because I figured that there was no point in, because I'm going to have to draw this at the plat at 100 scale, and
Uh-huh.
I'm sure that the architect will want the topo at a different scale than that. And I brought all these points in. We can erase them if you want, and uh, and relist them. I didn't know how to do that
Okay.
efficiently, so
Yes.
and I didn't know how to. And part of what I need your advice is uh, how to how to set a scale satisfactory to the architect. I can shoot him an email if we need information from him. He's pretty responsive,
Yeah.
and how to give him a deliverable that he can work with.
Okay, well, this is at 100 scale here?
Yes.
I'm gonna say, and I do a lot of site work, mapping. Um, and that would fit nicely at a 20 scale, so that would, show up there, and we'll get him enough of the surrounding property lines that he can see that. We don't have to include, say, that entire large parent parcel. We just need to show.
Yeah, no, he doesn't need that. And he had,
Right.
he's the one that gave me the drawing showing me the area that he needed topoed.
Yeah,
And I'll give him a copy of both plats, the merger plat and the topo.
yeah,
So,
yeah, perfect. Yeah,
so
so.
he should be good.
Mhm. Now, and you can do that, Mike, in one drawing if you want, so that anything you make changes in the model space, everything's going to stick with the model space. And then you could have two paper space sheets in that one file.
Okay,
And
I didn't know how to do that.
right.
I thought you could probably do it, but I didn't know
Yep.
how. So
Yeah, no
uh,
worries. I'll
you
show
go
you
back to
that.
this drawing and create another sheet called topo.
Yeah, just down where it says final plat.
Yeah.
And now, first of all, what all are you going to include in your contour map there? Are you going to show all those certifications and things like that, or some of them?
Probably just my seal and signature, and
Title
maybe
block.
a little, and right now, I don't even have a title block set up.
Yeah, okay, but
And
like you're gonna probably want the like I said, the seal and signature, the bar scale, and the your company address, and
yes,
you want to
the
include.
approval doesn't need to be on there, and the developer's acceptance doesn't need to be on there, because the
Okay,
planning commission isn't gonna see this.
right. But what I was getting at is if there's several of these things that you might want to include, like it wouldn't hurt to include the revision block for later use if necessary. But there's enough stuff from here. We can copy this thing and then modify the new one, or we could just create a new one. We'd have to bring all those things over individually. So let's
Right,
go ahead and just copy this one. And so if you go down to where it says final plat down at the bottom, just right
yeah,
click and choose copy. And you want to call this one whatever you want to call it.
topo,
Yeah, anything that makes sense for you. There you go, and say okay. All right, now when you click over there, it's going to be exactly the same as this other one. And so now you're going to take that wipeout, that red wipeout, not on this side, but on the topo map side. The other one, there you go. Now select that wipeout.
wipeout.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The viewport. Oh gosh, Diane laughed at me as she walked out the door because she does this for a living too. All right,
Okay,
and
then
so there you unlock it, and you're going to set your scale. And then I would go down to that, yeah, the custom scale, or either one. So say 1 inch equals 20. And go to annotation scale and also make that 1 inch equals 20. There you go. Now,
uh,
not yet. You want to, while you're over there, double click inside it and double click inside the viewport. And now without moving the wheel so that it changes the scale, you want to use the wheel and pan around till you get that centered in your viewport, the property you're looking at. There you go. Yep. And go back and grab another bite if you need to. Oops. Okay. I think you put it right back where it was. That's fine. Now double click outside of it. Select it again. It's still at 20. And
annotation scale.
yeah, change that back to 20. And now you can lock it. Okay. So now you're set up to be able to show that. And if we need to, um, In fact, you know, if we, here actually is what, let me see something here if I. That'll give it a little more context within those overall property lines.
Okay,
All right, so that's got our first step. We'll save that. And then all of these things down here, you can erase and copy and move around, you know, because you might want to repeat the legend if there's enough, you know, if it makes any sense. Location map, stuff like that, but you may not, you know, want to any or all of that on there. You can also, you know, make this, you know, is this the entire property? And it's just a portion of that that's going to have the topo?
no, that's the portion that's gonna have the topo.
I
This
see,
is,
I see. Okay, all right. So, yeah, so that would be, you know, this would be a good usable scale for this.
in fact, once we have the topo done, I'm gonna turn this line off.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's right. So, so we can use all of that as we're putting this together. Now, let's go back to a couple of things. I'm going to go back to the model, and you've got some points here shown. Now, we may want to redraw some of these points, but I'm going to show you why I'm going to consider that, because I'm going to go to settings, Carlson configure under general settings. I'm going to look over here on this left-hand side, and I see that you have use annotated scale. That's great. All right. So I wanted to make sure of that. And then the other thing is that when you draw locate points, okay. Now notice here I am in down here at the bottom where it says 1 inch equals 100 feet down there on the status bar. That's
Right.
that's your current annotation scale. Now, if I'd go up to settings, my drawing setup, and if I change that now from 1 to 100, if I make that 20, so all of this stuff changes on my heights for stuff like that. And I'm going to actually put this back to 1. I wish Autodesk and Carlson could agree on that at some point, but
Should that
anyway,
always be 1?
yeah, to get your line type scaling correct for for using the global line type scale of 1. If you set, like, everything you draw has a line type scale of whatever is set right here, and it's typically left at 1. So everything has a line type scale of 1. Now, it doesn't have to be. Individual lines can have, for instance, if I make that, say, 3, then you see how it looks compared to that. So,
Yeah.
so that's the way that, you know, some people control their lines, but I find it too difficult because you have to constantly change individual line styles. So if it's all set to 1, then you just let everything ride globally, and you know, you go with the typical line styles in an AutoCAD line style library are built to be used at a line type scale of 1. But all of that other stuff that changes that value to reflect whatever you set up here in this drawing setup, when Carlson does that little wizard, it puts it down in there at that scale. And that's done because way back in the day, a lot of people did their line styles off of this Carlson type menu. And so, you know, it's this, what do they say, this custom, well, let's just go to a line type manager. No, not that one, but the, let's see, line types. If I change polyline line styles. So you see all these ones that are sort of predefined, but one of them in here is called, let's see, just if it's called custom or user user def, user defined. So these will be things that you can actually turn on, like a piece of text or a block or something like you see that are made into these up here from the pick list. You can sort of make your own, and this will create it on the fly. Okay, and this, you can give it these dash components, and you set up the spacing and the symbol size and the gap size factor, the spacing and the symbol size scalar. So that is plotted inches. That's, remember, our word that we think about when we see the word scalar. And so when Carlson did all that, control over those line styles, they didn't do it from that everybody uses a line type scale of 1. And then they also set, there's a variable called MSLT scale. That's the model space line type scale. They leave theirs turned off so that when you change the scale up here under settings, then, everything sort of gets multiplied by or divided by whichever direction it is, that number. And the AutoCAD driven line type scale doesn't really show up in that case. But to make now, because we're going to start using our text to be annotative, particularly with our points, so that we don't have to draw the points twice and put them on multiple layers to have different scales, because we have 2 viewports. So we want the system to be able to control all that. So we're going to make sure, and we've already done that way back, day 1. We set that MSLT scale variable on and stored it in your template file. And that's, been the case all this while. Otherwise, it wouldn't generate these lines type scales correctly here in model space. It typically did over in paper space, but you should be able to see your line styles where you're working, regardless of which side you're in, or at least according to my preferences. So anyway, that, I guess, long diatribe over. The fact we've got that set. Now, if we look at this particular thing, I'm sitting at 20 scale. You can see the size of the text here. If I were to change that to go back to my settings, and if I put this back to 100 scale, and let's make that back to 1 still, and say, okay. Now you see how that gets bigger, so that when we look at it over here, it stays, appropriate. Well, not that one rather, but this one. So that stays appropriate for this size, and you can see the text and the symbols and all that are the right size now. But when you look at it here, they're huge, right? See, this is something like, looks like it's, just between 1/3 and 1/2 of an inch tall. Well, that's rather large. So what we do to get around that is we draw these points with another switch set on, so that, go back and put these back to 20 scale and set that back on. All right, so it regens that. Now, I'm going to change, excuse me, I'm going to get rid of this. Oh, excuse me. Good heavenly days. What layer am I on here? I'm on boundary. All right, so if I we're just going to draw a point 24 so you can see how it works. So if I draw locate points, and I'm going to say erase and redraw, that's what I want. So we're on boundary, and we're going to say draw a range, and we're going to draw point 24. I'm going to hit enter and hit enter. Now I'm at 20 scale, which is why that looked like that. Okay, it's much smaller, so that when it plots, now it should have erased and redrawn that. Why did it not? Oh well. But see, now I've got that huge one, and now I've got this one that would be more appropriate for a 20 scale. Whereas in my 100 scale, this big one is more appropriate, and you can't even see this one, because it's so jammed in there, so tiny.
So how do you do that when you're going to have two sheets and you're going
Well,
to have
that's what I'm going to show you. We're going to draw the points so that they react to the annotation scaling.
Let me do something here real quick.
Sure.
Let me get this.
Okay.
I'll do that on all of them as we go around. I don't need that on my plat right now.
Okay, well, I mean, we can freeze the layer if you want to not have to do that to each point, the description layer. Or you can leave it thawed so you could type in your own descriptions either way. So, but we can do that now. But so what I wanted to show you is that just like these lines, you notice how their scale changed when we changed the drawing scale. We can have that react for our points as well. Okay. So first of all, are these all of the points that you have, or do you have any on any frozen layers or anything?
I won't know the topo points, which we haven't brought in yet to this drawing.
Okay, but yeah, see up here with some control and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So one thing we can do, now we can leave those are already off. Are these in a point group or anything? If we erase all these points and redraw them, is it going to be easy to get them redrawn, or should we erase all the points and just redraw them all?
I don't know the answer to that, whether it would be easy to get them back or not. They should all be on the boundary layer, but it doesn't look like they are, judging from the point color. Let me see here. Let's click on one and see what layer it's on. On boundary.
Well, I can see all of them that say IPF. I can certainly get them all by, but I see one up there called T-post.
Yeah, it's on the boundary.
Yeah, but all right, so what are these oops, sorry. So what are the descriptions there that's
going to be in the river?
That it has no description regardless. Okay.
Right. The same thing with all of those on that side of the property.
All right, so yeah, they're all on boundary, but I don't have them in a particular group. So what I want to do, so let me go up here, and I don't know why. I'm going to erase this one. I don't know why that's left this one sitting up here. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Because when I did that read, I'm going to go ahead and just put that back on real quick just to match everything else. But when I said draw locate points, see, I said erase and redraw. And for whatever reason, it thought that was, basically allowed duplicates. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we do get that separate. So let's see, this same point 24. All right. So what I want to do so that we can draw these quickly is, I mean, I appreciate the fact that they're all on a layer called boundary, but that's not part of the points definition. So I need something that,
Okay, actually, point 224 and 225 are not on boundary. They're on the area to be topoed.
okay, all right, so that's fine. I'm not I'm losing the, my mouse no longer scrolls the zooming. Click on your, let me see if I, yes, if I click here and do a zoom extents.
Mine's not, I've got my mouse down there where I can move it, but as soon as I move it on the screen, it disappears.
Yeah, me too. Let me stop remote control. And if you click on it, does it come back?
No.
I see your mouse up there in the menu.
Yeah, down on the screen, it disappears.
All right, let me,
Go do a save.
yeah, that's fine. Do a save and what is this file? This is the just bell.dwg. Go ahead and close all the way out of Carlson and come back into it. I don't, there's something that's triggered this, and it's probably Zoom related. It's that top one. It didn't save a preview, but it's all right. Same drawing. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and get remote control going again. So whenever that pops up. All right, there we go. Now, so what I want to do is I want to take all of these points and I want to put them all in the same group. And then I'll erase by group and I'm going to redraw by group, even though we'll need to move these two onto that different layer. That'll be fine. So if I go to points and erase points, I'm going to do that by the screen. And those other ones that are safely frozen won't be a problem. I'll just select those and delete points from the coordinate file. No. Delete the symbols, attributes, or both. We'll take them both out. Okay, now we're gonna let's see, what did we have? We're still at 1 inch equals 20 now. Okay, so I'm gonna put this back to 100 like you had it and show you the difference here now when I do this one switch. All right, so this will be the way you had it. Do we have MSLT scale is on? MSLT scale is 1 indeed. Okay, so are these at 1? Okay, good. Now, when we do our draw locate points, there is a switch. Actually, it's in the point defaults. Sorry about that. You got to set it up first in point defaults. And it's down here at the bottom where it says use annotative points.
Yeah.
And if we turn that on, then when we draw these points, they're going to react. Now that is the symbol and the points themselves are going to react to changes in that drawing scale automatically. Otherwise, we could draw them at 100 scale, and then we would go to 20 scale. We need that. We'd have to go and either erase and redraw at that time, or we would, go to the points menu and say resize point attributes, and we go through all that rigmarole. So if we set that on, then we draw the points, it's going to read that scale and work accordingly. Now I'm gonna check one more thing here. All right, so we're in 100. So you are symbols and text are at 0.08. That's fine. I just want to make sure that we had those set. So now when we go to draw locate our points, we'll put at least the bulk, they'll all be on bound. Ooh. Actually, I completely forgot. I'm gonna have to undo a couple of things here. I want to get our points back. The ones that we just erased.
Yeah.
There we go. I forgot to put them in a group first. All right, so if we go to points, point group manager, and we're going to create a point group, and we'll call that so these are your non-controls, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to not include all, but we will include from our drawing, and we will say drawing select. And we're just going to go out here and select all of these points. So now it's found 2 point, is that a 2.3 and a 3.1 to 5, and a 9 to 10 and 11.1 to 19. So if we save that, there you can see all of those points that were included. Okay. Now that you got some cluster average points here too. Let me see. That's point number 4. I didn't see point 4. Ah, there it is. Oh, I see. Okay. So those are those are correctly the ones you want out there. That's perfect. All right. So those are your average ones. Those are what we'd expect. All right. So we now have that group of points. And now if I erase points so that I can redo them, I'll erase down here with a group, and the group will be these plotted points. Erase from the coordinate file, no. Delete the symbols, yes. So now their points are all gone except for the ones that are on those frozen layers like that. Okay. So now let's go back to our settings, drawing setup. We're at 100, we're at 1, everything's good for that. We'll go back to our points default because I think my undo undid that. Nope, there's my use annotated points, so that's still set. And it's time now to draw our points at 100 scale. So if you go ahead now and choose your points, I'll let you drive. You're going to draw locate points. And this time down at the bottom, now notice, now remember, they're all going to come in on this layer boundary, and they're going to all use that same symbol. So for the couple that you want to change, we'll fix after we draw them. And so now instead of those buttons down there where you usually say draw range or draw all, we're going to say draw point group, and we're just going to draw those.
Are we going to say erase and redraw?
Well, that's fine. There won't be any duplicates here. That's typically what you would want. So,
okay.
All right. So we say, okay, now you may notice it takes a little bit more time. See, it's still, see how much time that took to draw?
Yeah.
It wasn't instant because it's applying that annotative scaling.
Right.
So If you have hundreds and thousands of points to draw all the time, you're just drawing a bunch of points and, for your computations, it's probably best to go back to your points defaults and turn off that use annotative points. And again, just to quickly review where that is down here, right there. Okay. Because and when it's off, then it still reacts to the scale, but it's whatever the scale is set to now. It creates the points and they're static at that stage. All right. So now, though, if you go to your settings menu and change your drawing scale to 20, or drawing setup rather, yes, change that to 20, and then set your LT scale to 1 before you leave this screen. Now you hit OK. And now you see the points changed size.
Yeah.
So if you look over here now and I'm going to go back to your final plat layout, and you can see the size of that point and label and symbol relative to the, it's really relative to the overall sheet of paper. And if I look at it here on my topo map, you see it's much smaller. See how large that is as a percentage of that line length?
Yeah.
And yet when we're looking at it here, it's much smaller. But if I were to look at it, I'm going to try to measure this without clicking on it. I'm just going to
Doesn't look like the line's going to the point anymore.
So hang on a second, I'll take care of that. So if I look at like that, that gives me 0.088. So that's the right size in that scale. And if I measure it here, and I'm measuring in the paper space, I'm not clicking on any geometry. So that's 0.08. So yeah, so it has correctly scaled to match. And if you were to take this viewport and unlock it and change its scale over here, those would change size as well. Okay. So now you said something about the lines not going to it.
Yeah, that line doesn't look like it's going to the point anymore.
That may be why it maybe why it let us draw two, because for some reason 24. All right, if this is, all right, I'm going to hover in that, and that gives me a 0.876 and a 0.137. And this is a 0.993 and a 531, so, or 0.531 and 993 instead. So it's indeed not at the point.
So how did that happen?
I do not know. It's nothing to do with this annotation scaling, because these look like they are in fact correct. Let's look at that. Yeah, see that's correct. Did we somehow tweak that line earlier? When you drew the line, did it draw from point to point to using point numbers?
Yes.
All right, so if I were to move 0.24, do you have, first of all, in your settings? Sorry, not set. It's in the settings menu, but cross and configure. Do you have, yep, you're linked. Okay, so now if I should move, say, 0.23, from here to here, No, see, it didn't.
What's that blue circle on the
That's
side
the
there?
elevation.
Oh, okay.
Turn that back off, elevation decimals. Um, but see, like if I were to move, or if I had to draw a line, for instance, from 223 to 24, and then let's go out here just so, well, I didn't even need to do that one. But now, if I were to move 0.223, because of that linking, see, the line will follow it. That's why when I moved it, this line down below should have gone with it too, if it were drawn using the point number. So it's like this was not drawn with that, and the same thing would apply for this. That I don't need anymore. So, you know, again, not knowing how that line was actually created. When you drew this line, did you, when I say using the points, I mean when you choose this command to draw a line, did you, when it's asking you right now, where's it, pick a point or a point number, did you type in a point number?
Well, I think I did, but I can't swear to it. It's been too
Okay.
long.
All right, so that is my guess, is that it wasn't linked and somehow or another it's gotten tweaked. But if it is indeed that you know that it's supposed to be, a simple matter of just grabbing it, and you know, we can move this, and we can go to that point. You can snap to it, or we can go to and return this point. Now, why? Oh, I see. There's an extra vertex in there.
There's probably another point. Because that's a cluster point, and there should be a 24.1 and a 24.2,
Aha, I see.
and I'll bet that's where it's going to.
All right, so to fix that, I can't do that with a grip, but I can do this with the grip. If I move this, and if I, you know, that's 0.24,
That's what we want it to go to.
but then why is there, if I select this and okay, it was not, it wasn't it doesn't close it, so it had two, it had two actual vertices there, even though it's one figure, but you see down here it's not closed. If that were closed, that would have brought that around. And let's go ahead and close it now. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to put that back to the back. All right. So now there we have the points are going to now react at this scale and at this scale. And now you can do things like where this says cluster average, you can, I don't know, what did you typically do with those? Just
Turn them
take,
off.
you just take that, or you freeze the whole layer, or
I just turn it off and on drawing description, or erase it on drawing description.
Oh, it just like I was doing there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you do that. So now it's because, see, they're back up there now because we redrew the points. So, you can dress those back up and like, uh, those particular points. Yeah. So you've got a point in there, but you're not showing anything about it. That is your point. Uh,
Well, eventually that whole line's gonna be removed.
right, right. So that 224, then, you just use that as a point to go through just to sort of show that, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So let's save that. And I'll let you, work on those, before. Now I can come down here now. And if I want to work on this stuff, let's say I'm doing stuff for my final plat that's going to be at 100 scale, but it's more convenient to work in model space, then I would come back to here and do my drawing setup and put it back to 100 and make sure that goes back to 1. If I can hit the right key on my keyboard. And then when it redraws, now you're going to get, the line scaling. This is 1, 1, 1. Yeah, so those are good. So, and then that way yeah, so if this line here is supposed to be the same boundary line type, I would suggest, because right now it is an individual polyline there, there's one there. Now that's the close figure. So I would consider maybe joining these two together. And that way it's got more room to establish the pattern. But there's also,
Well, that line is gonna be a new line, so it actually has to be solid to meet the county regs,
mm,
the merger line.
yeah, okay, that's perfect. I would leave it just like it is. Yeah, so anyway, sometimes those are just some of the cosmetic things can deal with, like this line, it's all part around, and if you need to, you can see how that's the pattern sort of is awkward going through that corner.
Yeah.
And remember, that's going to be controlled by this line type generation. And so now it's been turned off, which means every time it hits a vertex, it starts the pattern over. So it starts out solid piece and comes all around here and then solid piece. But see, every time it hits a new vertex, it starts over. And if there's not enough room to start the pattern, then, well, that's why we turn this line type generation usually to yes, so that it can carry the pattern through the corners. That's mostly useful for when you're drawing contour lines, because you don't want the contour lines to go solid for segments at a time, drawing dashed contours.
Right.
Now, so also with that being said, and with these showing up at that sort of largish scale, if you do select all of those ones that are of that pattern, you could then go up here to your line type scale for those individual lines, not for the system. The system still has a line type scale of 1. And then we can make this a little smaller. We could say, make that, 75/100ths. And so now that also we got a little bit of a little more definitive shape through there. And if you were to turn that back off so that now every segment starts, but you see you still don't have enough in there or there or there, but you got the, so I would select similar because I don't want to select these. I'm just going to have those. I would put them, we'll even, yes. Let's make these say at point. Which there no start them over. Then you still got a little piece around here that doesn't quite show up. So anyway, I don't want to beleaguer this whole effort here. Let's get all of these. Oh, you've got some doubles. Yeah, that may also be. There's two. You've got one line, that little bitty line right there. Then you've also got one that's the big line underneath it. So sometimes you'll get that. That's what makes that show up.
We can turn the little bitty line off or get rid of it.
Yeah, so let's just select it. And then there we go. That'll go through there. All right. So anyway, like I said, I don't want to beleaguer that effort. You know, you can clean it up. And the key to everything is when you put your plat together, how does it look? You know, are they going to look at that and be confused? And if so, then tweak around with your lines. And if not, work accordingly. So there now is that. And we're in model space. We look down here at the bottom, we see that 1 inch equals 100. That was when we changed our drawing setup. So we can work with it like that. But if we're doing everything at 20, we could change that again here. Now you can change it down here, Mike. You can double click this down here and change that to anything you want. 1 inch equals, say, 50. And so see how they react there. But when you look at the drawing setup stays 100. But if you do it from here all the time, I'm going to change this now, say, to 30. And hit OK. And notice down here at the bottom of the screen, it changes that to 30. That's a setting in your Carlson configure general settings that says this last checkbox on the left-hand side says set annotative to the drawing scale. So anytime you change the drawing scale, it's going to set your annotative scale to match. The problem is it's not a two-way relationship. I can't change the annotation scale and have it change the drawing scale. You have to consciously tell Carlson it's a new drawing scale. So I would always get used to doing it from here. So if we put that, say, back to 20, and then also every time you do this, just always double check this so that you get your line types and everything set the way you need them to be. And what is that? That is, okay, so that's at 20 scale. If I look at my topo map, yeah, that was at 20 scale. We didn't get
How did that solid line turn dashed?
that one. Apparently,
that one.
yeah, apparently it was not dashed to begin with. It was just because it was so short. It didn't have room to make the pattern until I changed the pattern scale.
Okay.
So if that line's supposed to be solid,
yeah, just make it continuous by
yeah,
line type.
Exactly right. And so we'll just come down to there and do the old continuous and be done with that. Now, are we? Oh, here it is. And there's that elevation point again. All right. So, and you know how to handle the descriptors and all of that, but the key is the symbols and the labels are going to react to the scale. And then when you move, let's say if you move this here at this scale, I'm not sure how this is going to work. If I move, let's say I wanted to get that up out of the way, and let's say if I moved it up to here, okay, and I'm in my 20 scale topo map. Now, if I go back to my final plat at 100, see, it stays there until you, at this scale, you could also say move this one, you know, somewhere else here too, and then you go back and forth, and it's wherever you happened to move it to, it's going to stay there. Now, if you were to switch this now to being at 50 scale, it's going to come back into its standard location. So every different scale that you work with this, if you move it, it's going to remember that.
What happens if you move it on the model?
That same thing. When you move it in the model, it is, remember I moved that at the 20 scale? That was because when see, it was 20, so that's going to be 20. So if I change this to 100, see it's down there. And like even if I just change it here to something I haven't used before, say 50, it comes back to its default location. So if I move it somewhere now when it's set to 50, it's going to react and remember where I've moved it at that particular scale. So now back to 20 and 1 and go. Okay. And then if you I'll leave it up to you to however you want to.
Why don't we just turn the descriptions off for now?
Okay.
So you do that on the layer command?
Yeah, you can. I'm thinking about something here. If when we drew the points, draw locate points, and we said put it on boundary, did we turn in other words, do we have individual, like if I freeze description, is it going to freeze the description for all the points universally? And that's something that's controlled here under point defaults. When you draw the points, you see this over here on the right-hand side where it says separate layers.
Yeah.
So if you do that, if you put it on this layer called boundary, for instance, then when you're going to get a, let me show you better from the layer control. You're going to get a series of, let me see if I can, oops, and P. Yeah, so you would get boundary underscore P and T NO, boundary underscore P and T DE. So you could freeze off that. But if we froze that layer now under point descriptions, it's going to freeze the descriptions for all the points. Okay, so you can, excuse me, you can certainly do that. And if we do that, just like you're saying, and I pick on that layer, now they're all gone, and that's fine. You know, if that's what you want. But if you're going to use those
well, I'm going to use them eventually, but I just thought it would be cleaner right now to work with this to have
yeah,
them turn
and that's sure, that's fine. So that can get them out of our way if we want. So, all right, now, so we know where we're going to be doing our contouring. Now, the thing we need to know at this point is what are we going to use to generate the contours? And I'll just come back over to here and let me go back to here.
What do you mean by that? What are we going to use?
I'll show you. Let me set this back, and I'll tell you why I'm setting this back right now, because uh when I froze that, I only froze it in that particular viewport, which if I see my excuse me, gosh, I am so sorry. It's my there we go. So you see, it's in the current viewport was where it was frozen, and yet what I really should have done was done it from model. So no matter what viewport we're in, it'll freeze it. So I can freeze point numbers too. What do you think?
Probably for now, I don't think we need them.
All right. Yeah, if we need to see what a point number is, we can just double click the point and bring up the editor. All right, so now we've got some points, but now to be able to generate topography, the contours, we need something within our region to generate elevations. We need to either go out and survey a bunch of points on the ground.
Okay, well, I've done that.
You have done that.
Yes.
Okay. So those are the points we're going to need. So I would suggest let's change. I'm going to let you drive now for a while. Go ahead and change to a different layer. Instead of boundary. Let's make a new one if you need to and call these topo points, or if you've got one already made. There you go.
Okay, now I need to go figure out what the point numbers are. Let me do a list of points here. Okay, that where it starts here starts from point number 25.
Uh-huh. And you got toes, and you got spots and toes and spots and hole maybe. Okay.
Yeah, and then
And
trees.
so everything, but the trees were not used for elevation, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
You get-
actually, oddly enough, it's giving an elevation on the trees.
oh yeah, every point you shoot has an elevation.
Well,
Uh,
when you shoot with the reflectorless, it's not supposed to give you an elevation.
Well,
But it
I would have thought that it would, because you're still measuring a vertical angle, but you know your equipment, it may just be something that was not set on them. But in any case, so we do have a point, but let's say,
well, actually, you know what? I did have an HI in there in the instrument.
yeah,
So, but it would be giving you an elevation on the spot where I shot the tree, not on the
that's
ground.
that's correct. So it's going to be like up at knee height or belt height or chest height or wherever you saw the tree. So that's not
Right.
going to be useful. So now that's all good to go. So I see a bunch of descriptions. Scroll back up to the top. Let me see the top list. And we're going to start, you said about 25, right? What is A and C? Is that anything?
That's an anchor point. That's where I did
Oh,
well, I couldn't get over 24, so I did two anchor points and then measured over to 24.
oh, okay. Yeah. So they're not probably useful.
Actually, there I did a resection, so I had 3 points
Yeah.
that I measured from.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is it might have been that. So now, all right, so here's an easy way to get this instead of trying to look at these and figure out numbers. But now nothing over the 100. You didn't list any more than that. So nothing over 100 is a topo shot. Is that correct?
I think that's true. And in fact, we have to be careful not to use the trees for topo.
All right, understood. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do this. So go ahead and hit the exit button there. So we've got a good mental map. Now let's go back and use our point group manager like we did for the plotted points. And we're going to say, yep, and we're going to create. And
Topo.
go up there for the group name, and we're going to call these, you know, topo or whatever you want to call them. And now you're going to uncheck the include all. Okay. And we're going to now choose the description checkbox. And you can set from a list, so you can pick from the list. So you're going to get a list of all these points. Scroll down until you, or first of all, let's hit the description button at the top so that it sorts by description. And now that is, hit it one more time so it's alphabetical at the top. Now, scroll down until you see the first description you want to use. Or is a whole one or not? It's in your range.
Yeah.
All right, so just click that one. Now, house looks like that's one. So hold the control key down now and hit one of the house. Excuse me, hit one of the house buttons or points. Okay.
Well, we probably don't want the house because it's the same thing. It was shot with an EDM.
Okay. Okay. All right. You don't need more than one. That's fine to use two. But now just keep scrolling down. And every time you see a description, now there's an IPF, so probably not unless they're all guaranteed to be on the ground. There's a spot. So control click one of the spots, or at least one. There you go. And scroll down to the next one you see.
Down to the end of that spot.
Well, you don't know. You don't need to. No, you don't need to select them. All I'm doing is selecting and control, but make sure you control click each one of these. So it's picking up every time we get one changed. So now top would be the next one. And you can click over on the word itself. You don't have to click on the number. And that looks like it. So we say, okay. Okay. Now, so that's going to get whole, spot, toe, and top as that group. Okay. So if we save that, and now I'll show you another way you can do that. If we make we're just going to call this topo 2, is you could start out with a point list. You knew you started from 25 to 100, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now it's everything 25 to 100, including house and hole or tree rather. But now you go to this exclude tab and you can exclude, if you know, for instance, HSE and tree. Okay. So now save that. And so now topo 2 has 56 points. Spot. Oh, we got that 35 that we accidentally had clicked. So we'll take that one out. So if I edit, oops, that's not what I want to edit. Let's see. Oh yeah, topo 2 was I got this one because I didn't exclude that. So let's go back and make that edit. And I'm going to make sure on this exclude list, I say set from list. I will sort by name. So I start at 25. And there's one that I want to add to exclude. All right, so it starts with spot and toe. So I'm going to exclude this. And I think I have to redo these since I'm making the edit. House and tree then would be the next one. Yeah, so STK plus or average distance 0 and then HSE a tree. Now I could have also, if I knew that, whoops, I had an STK, I could have just done something like this. Just STK, anything that starts with STK and then comma HSE, comma TREE. Say that. So now your topo that we did by picking those points, which is fine, it's got 54. Mine's got 54. And I would imagine they are exactly the same. There's 25, scrolls down, it ends at 95. Minus 25, scrolls down, ends at 95. So you see, either one of those means it's just some way to pick points and say you belong to this group. And points can belong to more than one group. All right. So I'm going to delete that. It was just an example to show you. Yours was by far the quickest. If you knew just those few, pop into it. Under your, when you do the create, you would select from a list. You can also select from a selection. You can type a point number range. You can pick from the drawing with all of these different things or certain things within a certain elevations, yada, 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 yada. So there's all kinds of ways. All that is a way to create this list of points. Okay. So now we're going to plot just those points. So I would go to your points menu.
Topo map.
You could, you don't necessarily have to. I mean, they're going to be in the model regardless. So
Okay.
if you went to topo map, you would do it inside the viewport and they're going to show up in both viewports anyway. So go to your points menu and we're going to draw, locate points. And we're going to change that layer name down there where it says boundary. We're going to change that to topo first of all. Okay. And I would change
elevations.
Sure. And actually, you know what? Let's cancel this. I want to change the point defaults so that we can have individual control over those. You go back to your point defaults. And I would at this point, see, we're working at 26. I would go ahead and let's say annotated points. You don't have so many points that annotated points are going to be an issue, so we'll leave that on. But over where it says separate layers on the right-hand side, change that to both. And then let's change the symbol to just be either a plus or an X or something. We don't need that wipeout stuff. There you go. And layer for points, you can change it here too, might as well. And then, yep, and then up where it says elevations, if you leave that off, which would be fine, you can always set it on when you do a draw locate, turn it on and off, or just remember to do it from here too. I recommend having it on here as well as the locate on real Z axis. That should probably almost always be on so that the points draw at their elevation. Okay, and then I would say okay to that. You've got that set. Now when you draw locate points, by default, which you had always had before, you never had to turn on, elevations and locate on real Z axis. I think they probably came in unchecked. I don't recall. I didn't look at it when I first noticed it. But anyway, it would put these, make these on so that they're included. And then you would have to freeze off the individual layers. But so we're in good shape with all of this. You can now put this by layer name is topo. That's fine. And you could say, even something like layer by description, and it would make a layer called spot, a layer called hole, a layer called, what were that other things that toe and top. So it would create those layers and put those points individually on those different layers. If you said layer by description.
Yeah.
You understand how that works? So that's fine. All right, let's just leave these right now on the layer called topo. We can turn them all on and off, and we'll draw the group. And we'll choose our topo group. And voila, there you go. Now, so this is all sort of generally what you want to show, your little area that the architect gave you is generally what you want. We're going to use all of the points that we have, and a couple of things we can do. If you zoom in there, get in close enough to where we can sort of see the outside, but I want to make sure I can read the descriptions on those outside ones up at the top. I'm guessing they're the toe or top of the slope. Yeah, toe. All right, so that's going to form our boundary of our edges as to what we're going to be doing. Now, if all that we did when we created a series of points, and let me run through this real quickly to show you, and I'm going to go back and let you get into this once you understand the subtleties between the different methodologies. But first of all, if I wanted to look at everything that's in here in 3 dimensions, I'm going to use my 3D viewer, and I'm just going to sort of, well, in fact, I won't even do that. I'm going to type the word all. So I'm going to get everything selected, put it all in my 3D viewer. And now the only thing that I have in here, see those individual points. And I see they are nicely, at elevation. Now there's something. Yeah, there's a point somewhere out. Let's see here, zoom extends. All right, so they are, that says elevation 0. It found some kind of stray something or other. Yeah, see, there's something way down there at 20. Excuse me, I don't know. It's a plan view. There is something somewhere at some weird elevation. See if I can. It's probably something that we we brought in. No, 361, 394. I think it's fine. Well, all right, so we just won't select all when we go to view it. So if I view with my 3D viewer, and if I just grab everything here, let me also grab. Oh, okay. The image frame is at 0. The raster image. It's also 0, but it has this height. Well, I will, let's leave this off. Let me see one other thing I wanted to check on. Smart position 3. Mm, Right. All right, so if I just grab and take a look at all of my data. Now this should make, what is going on here? There's something it keeps finding. Way out to the sides here. Oh, sorry. Of course, that is those points. Yeah, so they do have elevation. I'm sorry, I forgot about those. And these are just the ones out here on the edges. Set the points up a little bit right here. So if we zoom, take a look at everything that we've got here. I'll just get those selected entities. Well, now we go. Yeah, so they're now, each of those, now you don't see the point numbers, they're just points. They're showing you what has been surveyed. So those are all good, but that would be a real good way to take a look at what goes into making this surface. Okay, because we need something that tells you elevations. Now, so I've seen I don't have any strange outliers. And here's a couple of things that we tend to do. If we triangulate and contour is the command, I'm going to just run it here and I'll draw the contours. What kind of contour interval? 1 foot, 2 foot, how steep is it out there? Mike? Hello? I can't hear you. Are you muted? No, doesn't say so. Are you with me? Can you hear me okay? Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me. So do you know about what contour interval?
Uh, well, I would think 1 foot would be pretty good.
Okay. So if we do 1s and 5s, just to show you what this would be, I'm going to turn my smoothing off. Let's see, I'm going to reduce any contour by. I'm not going to label anything. I'm not going to filter anything. I'm not going to save the file. I'm just going to draw the contours, ignore zeros. So 6,000. And yeah, so with this done just by standard, and I'm going to say erase previous, so shrink wrap none, everything's good. I'm going to say okay. It's going to ask us to pick the things we're going to triangulate, and we would typically say, okay, we'll make a surface out of these points. And if we do that, well, it will. Okay, so there it is, just in its rawest form. And
Yep.
that might actually luck out to be what we're looking for. However, we've got a couple of things that we can do to sort of clean this up. Notice it drew contours all down this edge here because there's a shot up here at the top called spot.
Yeah.
And there's here at toe of the bank. Well, we don't really know what's in here. We didn't observe any points in here.
Right.
Right. So we really need to limit our involvement within there. In fact, if we look now at that, let's do the, we'll do that one more time. I'm just going to repeat that command. And we'll draw the triangulation lines as well. Erase previous contours, all contours. Okay, draw lines. Well, I don't know why didn't do it this time, but we'll grab these contours and get them off there now. Maybe at least say current. All right, that should be fine. Draw the lines. All right, so when we do this, with just that, you can see the contours, but you see the purple lines, those are the triangles that formed.
Yeah.
And so, and they would make part of that surface, and you would have this big triangular slab out here as part of that surface. So that's not exactly what we want. We want to be able to identify things in here that are going to limit what we are looking at and trim our surface back. So we got a couple of spot points out here that, you know, may or may not be of any significance. They, you know, they could be. We can use them to round some things out. Now this IPF, you know, if that were taken actually on the ground, if you were confident that it was, you could include that. In fact, we did when we selected our points. So, you know, that might be okay to do, but here's a couple of things that we want to do is because if we talk about the concept of break lines to control our triangulation, we've got this toe of slope, and this is all down here at the bottom. Is there anything else in between? Everything else in between is spot, spot, spot. I got toe all the way around. Do I have any tops? Yeah, here's a top. So what do we have? If we draw a 2D polyline, and let's put that on 3D break line. Make those same color. And if I want to go from, say, my top, there's 67, 68. What else do I have that says top? Do you recall anything from it?
It's been too long since I've shot it. I don't think there were many. It's kind of, I mean, it's easy. It was pretty easy to identify the toe, but the top, it's just all kind of a top.
Yeah, so All right, so if we did use looks like we've only got 2 points in our list. Let's say top, and that's okay. If we say all, and we'll say star, top, star. Yeah, so you've only got those 2 points. That's what I just want to make sure that that was going to be the case. So, but here's what would happen. Now, if we've got all our toe points, and I'm drawing 3D points, so it's look like there's 50. Is a toe, or there's a 49. All right, so we started over here probably. Let's say there's 41, 40 to 43, 39. All right, so 39 to 43. So I'm going to say 43 to 39, comma. And it looks like it kept coming right on around 31, 34. So 31 through 34, comma, 48 through 50. I think that will do it. Whoop, looks like I picked one up here. So that must have been not 39, that was 30. See, I thought that was a 39 going that way. So, all right, I see. So we'll take this out again, and we will again.
There's no way you can go in there and just break that line and
Oh yeah, yeah, sure could have. But this way I'm going to be able to use point numbers. So if I have to move any of those, so now that went 30 through, and you could also restrict just to toe. You could make a group called toe. You could do field to finish and have it create these along everything that says toe to connect. So that's going to go through 34 and then 48 through 50. All right. Now I think that's basically the toe of that's what the heck I missed. I must have missed. All right, so I go from 30 to 34. 30 to 34. And then we can do this, simply take that segment out and then draw 3D. From 48 to whatever that one is, 34. Looks like we need to add 47. Not that it's all that crucial, but you get the idea. Are these both toe points? Looks like 29 and 30 are close to being the same point. 365, 40.
pretty close in elevation.
Yeah, so we got one of them that is 461, the other one is 453. So that's pretty much the same point. And if there's a particular reason that you had those two, looks like 29 and 30.
No, I probably just should got disoriented and shot the same one
I
twice.
just shot it twice, and that's no problem. We'll just leave it as it is. And we'll draw this one in now from, say, the end of that line up to that point and be done. Now, as long as we are, well, that didn't introduce any kind of visible discontinuities. I think we're in good shape. I don't have any, see over here's that one that we did not get for that end. And there's one right in there too. Huh. Okay. So I missed one. Oh no, it's I got all the points, not just the ones that say toe. I did miss this one. So if we add that vertex, instead of erase a vertex, we're going to add a polyline vertex. We choose our polyline and we're going to choose this point. Make sure we're hovered over the center of the point mark. It's 0.47. Unable to find on the polyline. Okay. There we go. So let's just close that little gap. This is why field to finish is so good to use, because it just reads through your point lists and creates all those together. Now, so we've got all of that done, and they can stay separate, but it's easier to manage this if you do a join nearest, and that's what I chose up here. I will say just directly connect the endpoints is fine. I will join only the same line types and layers and elevations will be fine. And then I'm just going to grab, each of these. And it doesn't matter if you choose some of the points or something else. And if it's outside that tolerance, it's not going to grab it anyway. So I'll come down here and grab all those. So now there it is. And if I select it, I see that everything selects end to end. It's one entity. So that's a little easier to manage. Now, right up here, this doesn't really do us a whole lot of good, this top and top. But if, say, if we knew that, say, these spot shots that came around here, if that was all the top of our slope, or maybe, the top went right through here, then that's saying here's the top, down here's the bottom. These are points along the face. But if you have this line drawn up here, excuse me, and you're using it as a break line, then points back here can't accidentally sneak through and find a point down here and make an invalid triangle. That's why we use those we use them as break lines. And in fact, if we have this, see this spot point right here, that could potentially say look across and get to a shot over to a point over here and form a triangle edge that might or might not be very valid. So I would suggest when you shoot features like that, and we'll do the same thing now, we're gonna again put it on break line, and we're gonna take these whole shots. It looks like 58, 59.
54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59.
Let's see, yeah, so 54 went to 50.
No, I think it goes to 59. 58 goes to 59, and then to 50.
Yeah, yeah, and then that goes to this one or this one.
I think it goes from 55 to 56, 57, 58, 59, back to 54.
Ah, okay, gotcha. So,
I think I took them sequentially.
all right, so then we'll just make it easier on ourselves. We'll draw these things. Went to 54, did we say?
Yeah, 54, 55.
556 through 7, 58, 59, through 59. Or through 6, yeah, 59. Like that.
Back to 54.
And then we just close. All right, so there's a hole. So this would be a conflict right here, because if we see those two items only, I'm going to see that they cross,
Yeah,
and where they cross, they probably do not have exactly the same elevation. So that's what we call our crossing break lines, and we'd have to resolve that. They're probably close to crossing because they're actually on the ground and they're close to each other. So this is the toe of the slope. That's that. You could do, you could just get rid of, let's get rid of this segment down here that way. But I'm trying to see this toe of slope as a break line is not really helping much in the sense, because we don't have other stuff out here that it's going to keep points from this side to triangulate to points on that side. That's really why we have those. So we don't really have this, but if we have this in here, this would, and if we had anything in between, in fact, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it there. So there is a point contained in the middle that's also called point hole. Now, I'm not drawing the shape of the hole. I'm just drawing a break line, and I'm saying from here, this point hole, it can't look across and see this point toe. It can't look up and see this point spot. It has to stay within that bound.
okay,
I wouldn't have had to have gone to 50. In fact, I could do it like this even. Let's do this, makes more sense. Let's remove that. And so now it's going to go, even though we shot 54, 56, 57, 58, the 59 and back, but 59 is just another point that's probably in the hole. And this might be a little bit more like what it looks like up there.
right,
Okay. And then everything else is a spot shot. This being the top means that 0.95 here, which is called spot, would not be able to look across and see 0.93 to form a triangle. It's going to have to form a triangle up here and over here, because this is already drawn, it's in its way. And so those are, and that's basically the rules of how you do this stuff. Here's another toe. I should have gone from 50 instead of stopping at 50 the last time. I should have stopped at 51. But so now I've got sort of the bounds showing. I got some inclusions that I can bring in. Now I don't have any data in here. But as long as these are all pretty, consistent, pretty linear across there, then that's fine. As we,
I think they are, but after we finish this, can we bring in the topo
Yep.
from the GIS and see how it looks?
Yes, absolutely. So, so let's, so we're gonna now bring this.
Let me know when you need to take your break.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was looking at that. It's sort of getting on. We probably, let's do that now.
Okay,
And let's come back at 11 o'clock, and that'll give me a chance to wrap up those things I got to reply to. And
okay, I'll
all
make
right.
my phone calls in the meantime.
Yep. So I will, I'll pause our recording, and I'm going to stop my remote control at the same time here. So let me come back my recording starting before. Don't want to forget that. So, okay. So what I'm gonna do just to clear the decks away a little bit is, let me get my remote control request back here. And I'm going to isolate just these couple of layers. So if I isolate, I'm going to say get one of the point layers and the 3D. And that's the data we have. That's what we can build our topography out of. Okay. So when we go to triangulate and contour, and I'm going to let you let you drive this. So excuse me. So go well, first of all, let me illustrate a couple of real quick things I was trying to show you. I'm going to turn just do these like we've had it before. So that puts these triangles, this long fat triangle out here, because it went from that point up to there, up to there. Same thing, some of these long ones down here, even ones in between here. So you see this spot, looked up here and saw this spot. It also looked over here and saw that spot. It also looked up here and saw that spot and saw that spot. And those are all legitimate if that's what the land does in there, and it might. But you might, maybe this toe spot is not able to look up here and see these points necessarily. So what we want to do is to sort of get an idea of where we should limit our topography. Like we don't have any spots in here, but it could all just be a straight slope down. That's fine. But maybe we're going to put a little limit on it around here. So we want to shrink wrap some of this stuff. Okay. And if we, and we can do that two ways. You can say draw shrink wrap entities, but if you do that, depending on some settings, you're going to get this to, go all the way, follow itself around in here like this. So let's really do it in this particular sense. If we draw a shrink wrap, and we're going to put this on not boundary, but we're going to call it topo. Well, let's call it boundary, BDY topo. We'll let it go across gaps. We'll say, okay, but we're going to have no reduction. I'll show you the difference. First of all, I'll do it like this. I'll say high reduction, and I'll say draw a boundary around all of our data. And when we do that, you see this closes in like that, and it's probably not too bad, actually, like that. If we were to say, do that again, and we said no reduction, and if I get all the data, except I'm going to remove that one, then that's what this line looks like. And I'll make it a different color. No, wait. So that's what it's doing normally. That's what gave you that long triangle out here. But if we use this sort of as a, see this, if I put this boundary here, this is going to keep this toe point from looking way up here and hitting these points.
Right.
So, and we can do it a couple of ways, like if we added, we could sort of, bring this in a little bit if we needed. That may, maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe those are legitimate in here. Like, do you think it goes from here, could go all the way down to here in a straight shot, do you think, or should we pull that in some?
Well, kind of, I think it does.
Okay. And then I would say maybe from here, this point, if we got rid of that point, then that would sort of follow that list, and we might even get rid of this one as well. Or what do you think about this up in here? Are these enough to define this shape? Should we go straight across?
Yeah, probably should go straight across.
Okay. So we'll just take out these two vertices. Now I'm just hovering the mouse, and when that menu pops up, I'm taking those out like that. Okay.
Let me ask you a question, and this is just a question because I don't know the answer to it. Would it have been in making these decisions, would it have been useful to look at the GIS topo and see what it says is going on?
Not generally. I find it's more useful to look at the land, and because the GIS topo or the USGS or whatever you're looking at is it is what it is, and it's either correct or it's incorrect, but the land is going to be what the land is. And once you get used to doing these and you know what you need to pick up to define the land, then your map's going to be more refined in that area. So and if this ground is inaccessible and you can look at that, and if it doesn't make a lot of sense to how to cut brush and get down in there, but if it looks like it's straight, then that's legitimate. If it's not, you need to limit it. You could bring this in like this so that it doesn't draw contours in here, because right now it will, and it'll interpolate between this 388.14 and 392.22. So those contours will cross in there, and that may well be fine. Same thing goes from here. So if one of the things, let me go back to where this, oops, let me say this. Yeah, so one of these, one potential is sort of like that, and that would get rid of those long triangles out in here, but that means these points would not be considered in generating your topo. So I don't know that we necessarily want to do it that way. We may want to include them, but I don't know what's going on in here. Now, and that may be that we put those back out there, because it may be from this toe slope all the way up to this spot is just a nice smooth slope, and then that becomes legitimate. But there's definitely a deficit of data in here, and you have to make that judgment as to whether there's something in there that you need to include or not. And so this one, we said that we thought we could take at least these out, and that would be more inclusive. Do we do that maybe? Or
can we turn back that area to be topoed line and see what that looks like again?
Yeah, sure.
So it looks like we can definitely leave all of those out.
Yeah, we could probably leave this one out. So I would say let's go from there. Let's put it up and grab that one. We'll make sure we get that one, but we can leave those two out. But now keep in mind, this is where your contours are going to end, right on here. So you're not going to have contour information in here, down here, or over here.
Yeah, well, let me look real quick at this drawing down here. That's not it. This is it. Yeah, so he's showing some gap in there in the back.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't think he's concerned about that.
That'd be fine. So, and again, we've got, what are our points in here? We got spot. you know, maybe we can do something like that, and that'll at least keep some of this stuff down. It still get some in here, get some in here. I think that might work. Okay. So now when we do this, and we can leave everything showing now because we have some things that are going to limit what we're working on. In fact, let's I think what we'll do is I think I'm going to go ahead and take that one out because I think that little bit in there will just help redefine. Yeah, let's see. Oh boy. It undoes too much at a time. So I'm going to remove those. I'll sort of get everything there. I'll keep that. And again, like I said, if these points, if you know they're in fact on the ground, it'd be, you know, those would be useful. They can help define it.
Well, they're pretty close. I mean, you know, that they might be,
all right. And what about these 2 points? Do they have,
that's an imaginary point.
so it's got 0 elevation, so it'll be ignored anyway. Make sure this one is too. Yep. All right. So those are good. Even if we select them, they won't be triangulated. All right. So everything within there. And we might as well, if we're going to use this point, we can help that little bit in there. So that'll pick that up. And then that's that imaginary point. So we got that point. If we, what's this point now? And that one's also on the ground. It has an elevation. So that one, maybe we can incorporate those two as well. And then that can pick that up. Let's do that. Let's, I'm going to bring this guy back to there. I'm going to take him down to there. I'll put to there. Yeah, maybe one back to there. So that'll sort of leave that sort of, and that gap's in there anyway, so that part's in good shape. All right, so we're not going to cross with our break line down here. We said that'll incorporate that. Okay, so I think that should be sufficient to what we need. I'll go ahead and save. Now, you go ahead and run the triangulate and contour command for me. It's on the surface menu or it's on the toolbar there. It looks like the pyramid on the far left. There you go, top one. And real quick to go through this, uncheck the triangulation lines. You're not going to draw those. But the biggest thing that we do want to do is to write the triangulation file. Because once we write that file, we'll be able to generate contours from it, do all kinds of things from it from there on out. So now hit the select button off to the side where it says write triangulation file, right up where you were. Yeah, right there. And give it a file name. So this is going to be, you're in your Bell Carlson folder, which is where your drawing lives, I would imagine. So now just type a name that you want to call it, just EG or something, EXGRD, existing ground, whatever you want to call it.
About topo.
That's fine. I mean, you might, well, like if you ever went into later and you defined a proposed grade, that's something. And, there you go.
Let me call it topo existing.
Okay, that'd be perfect. All right, and hit save. So now that's going to be the file that it writes when we do this. Now, not yet. So now on right underneath that line where it tells you the file name, it says use inclusion exclusion areas. Check that on. That is that little white boundary that we drew. Okay. And the boundary methods, the pull down on the right, and it's set to what we want it, but you can see the choices is that you can either trim off the contours or trim off the edges at the boundary, or you would remove triangles entirely where they cross. And that's not what we want. We want to trim them at the edge. Okay. Erase previous contour entities. I would pull that down, and for some reason it's not sticking, but I would pull that down and say all contour entities, just so if we make a mistake and we go back and do it again, it should erase it for us, but we'll see. And we do want to leave ignore zero elevations selected so that it will ignore those points, even though we're going to select them. And then densify break lines. Now, what that's going to do is on those real long edges, right now, if you don't turn that on, it's going to make that one single edge of a triangle. But if you do turn that on, and I would set your interval to be about, 25 feet or something, then it's going to throw in memory, it's going to throw a little point along those edges so it can make smaller triangles and give you a little better looking definition in there. And the next block down, adjustments for source data of contours. Now, we're not taking anything from existing contours, so we're not going to worry about checking anything there. And if you had dense existing source data, which we don't, we could simplify the surface. So we're going to leave that set as it is. Now, on the contour labels and selection tabs, let's look first all the way over at selection up at the top. The tabs across the top. There you go. This is a way that you can filter out data that you select to not be included. And we just want to make sure we're not filtering anything. So everything we select is going to be considered, and it's going to decide whether it's within our boundary, whether it has elevation, all that kind of stuff based on those other switches. But right now we don't want to have any filtration going on, but you can see you could filter out other things that you don't want to bother to try to hide or freeze, that kind of stuff. So we're good with that. So now let's go to the, if you look at the labels tab real quick, you'll see it's all gray because it's unchecked, but go to the contour tab and see it's set right now to draw the contours, which is what we've been doing. If that were unchecked and all we did was create the surface, you wouldn't see the contours draw until we do that separately in a different command. So we'll go ahead and draw them. And we'll put these, you see the layers that it uses, there's CTR. We give it a contour interval of 1, and then we check on to draw index contours, and we give that a different layer name, and they can be anything you want. Those are just the defaults. And then we make that interval 5 feet. So 1 foot, 5 foot. And we set a minimum contour length. If it's less than ½ an inch, it's not going to draw it, or ½ a foot rather. And the you got some other things where you can, outline flat areas, you can reduce the vertices and all that, but yours are going to be fine as they are. We typically don't do those. Those are some fine tuning, like apply the outlier reduction filters and meander reduction filters. We're going to leave those alone. And that's up here on the, up here in this left edge. So we're going to leave those off. And now we've got smoothing and non-smoothing on. I like to work with no smoothing, at least at first, because when you smooth the contours, yeah, it makes them look nicer. We're not changing the surface any, so we may go back and turn that on after the fact. If they're sort of jagged looking, we'll take a look at it later. Because once we save this file right here, we can do that at any point. We can redraw them and change all of these different things about it. Okay. So that's good for that. And then let's go to the, I'll let you drive now, go to the labels tab. And let's label the contours. And let's put the label layer the same as that index layer was. Now, if you say select, it doesn't exist. Well, yeah, it does exist. Yeah, because we ran it before. And I think it was called CTR IDX or something like that. Yeah, right, CTR index. There we go. That just makes it easier to control later. And your label style, you can select a text style. I would, yeah, see where, yeah. Do you have a standard defined already or?
Well, there's the standard I've been using for everything, but I don't know which.
Yeah, but scroll down and find the ones without all those prefixes. There you go. Use that. Okay. And now you want to, and see where it says index label layer. We're going to also make that CTR index. Okay. Now, and change your style also there to standard. Now these will stick for the next time you do this, so that'll be good. Now, label the integers, and this is for the labels on the contours. And right now it says all, but you see what it will let you do. Like if you had everything was sitting up at 10,000, you could only put the last 3 digits of the mantissa portion of the number, but we're going to say all because we're not that high up in the ground. And the label decimals, when you pulled that down, let's say if you were doing, half foot intervals, you would want that 0.0, but I would just put it at 0 so it doesn't put decimals. It just goes to the nearest one. And the label text size 0.08, that'll give you, about what size that's going to work. That'll be fine. All kinds of prefixes and suffixes, minimum lengths, etc. But now the controls down below the check boxes, there's a couple things you can do. There's one at the top of that list of boxes up there on that whole group of check boxes on the left where it says break the contour at label. If you were to do that, and we're not, but if you were, when it draws the label, it puts the label down and it actually breaks a gap into the contour line so that there's a hole in it right where that label exists. So we're not going to do that, but we're going to go down and to the right, that other group of check boxes where it says hide the drawing under the labels. And that will make it look like it broke it, but will then allow us to move that label along the contour line, and it will just walk the contour line and go down to the next place you drop it. So if you break it, you can't do that moving the labels later, but if you hide it, you can. And then you also want to label your index contours only, otherwise it will label all the contours. There you go.
Where is that? Oh,
right there, yeah. And might as well draw on the real Z axis so that it puts it at the right elevation. There's no need to use M text. There's no need to align facing uphill. That's generally in real flat areas so that you can give the map reader a sense of which way is slightly uphill. And now the last two to set is you can label by interval, which is what it's set to now. And it's got a pull down there underneath it that says 2 labels per contour. But now that tries to put 2 labels on every contour line. You can put 1 per, or you could click, instead of any of those, that distance interval. And I have no idea what scale we're looking at here. Like how wide is that property? A couple 100 feet.
That's the most.
Anyway, you can take that distance and let's set it to be like 200. So that means that every 200 feet along the contour line, it's going to drop a label. Okay, and we can change it later if we need to. So let's say okay to this point. And now watch the prompts carefully. It says select entities, but read the line above. That's what you're selecting. You're selecting any inclusion perimeter polylines. That is that white line. There you go, right there. And that's all of them that we have. So we say enter to finish.
Wait a minute, did he select all of these around there?
Well, it selected that's one continuous closed polyline. We just moved the vertices, okay? And they do have to be closed for this to work. All right, so we have that, and we're going to say enter to finish that selection. Now read it again, the line above, it says any exclusions. So if you had a big pond or building footprints or anything like that, you could make those exclusion lines and it would not generate data inside of those, but we don't have any. So it's enter for none. And now, still saying select entities, says select the points and triangle and lines, select the points and break lines to triangulate. Now those break lines, the ones that we drew at the toe slope, that's a break line, just because of the fact that it's a 3D polyline. It exists in the drawing, and if we choose it, we don't have to choose it yet, then it's going to treat that as a break line. The one up above where it goes top to top, although it's not going to be all that effective, it would at least keep something from way down below from looking up past it and going across it. So, but anyway, you can see that it's not all that effective. This is really more effective when you had things like top of curb, face of curb, all that kind of stuff, backs of curb. You would pre-draw those and they would become break lines. If you had a well-defined top of slope and toe of slope, you could, restrict those as well. So now it wants you to get all the points and all the break lines that you want to consider. And you could, at this point, just back out and draw a big window around that whole mess, or you could even type the word all, A-L-L, and it would get everything. And it's going to limit it to those things that are within the boundary that we selected and that have elevation. Okay.
Enter.
Yep. And now you're through selecting, so you can hit enter one more time. And it's okay. So it got rid of some outside ones because the gap would have been too big. Let's take a look and see.
Okay.
Uh-huh. So that looked like it fit everything pretty nicely. All right. So there is our contour map. And you can see, and you see how this whole sort of showed because this one, this 3D break line layer is actually going to go away. So it's going to look like this. That's what the contour line is going to, it's going to wrap like this and cut back and have a little hole in here in the middle. Now this boundary would also go away. So if I were to freeze that, so that would be the contour line. It comes up here and just walks its way around that hole. That's pretty nicely defined. Everything's here, but you see how sort of angular looking they are, and that's because that smoothing was not on.
Right.
And so now let's do this. Let's freeze the points layer. Oops. I want to get that whole layer, so I'm going to get the point itself. And let's, all right, so all of our points are off, and that's covered our range that we needed pretty nicely. And these are all nice and legitimate because it went down, you had a well-defined toe of slope. So that's a nice little boundary around it. It's this stuff up here that was sort of iffy, but there you can see it didn't cause any radical departures from those. Maybe these don't cut back like this. Maybe they come across like this, but I think that's going to get the spirit of what we're looking for pretty nicely. Now, to show you how that hide under the drawing, when you select this, you see there is a text and a wipeout included there. That's how it hides that. In fact, if I turn my wipeout, oops, sorry, wipe out frame, shoot, wipe out frame. If I turn that on, that's what it's doing. See, it's putting that wipeout. So I'm going to now turn it back off. So now, but here's the advantage of doing it the way we did it. Let's say you had a building right here or something you wanted to show and that label was right in the way. If you go up to the surface menu and yeah, go ahead and I'll talk you through it. Go up to the surface menu and where it says look for here. Oh, it's different from the civil menu. Look under contour utilities for a second. Yeah. Okay. So next to the last on the pull right where it says move the label along the contour.
Yeah.
Choose that. And let's say you wanted to move one. It's asking you to select the contour label. So you're going to select the label and go ahead and choose that. Yeah, that's fine. And now you see when you just move the mouse and try not to snap to something else. Yeah, just move the mouse and just move it all over. You can see where it's going to relocate it wherever it needs to go, wherever you want it to be. And so wherever you click, when you see the little outline, that's going to be where that label shows up. Okay. So, and then it's asking you to now select another one. So you keep doing it until you're satisfied with the way they look. And, yeah, so there you go. So now you're done, you hit enter and good to go. Okay. Now let's go back and turn our contour smoothing on. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can on the surface menu under that same pull right, the contour utilities, there's probably something there that says smooth your contours. Yeah, you could do it that way. Or what I like to do is because you have this triangulation file already made, let's just go to that same menu, but don't go to the pull right. Just go to where it says contour from 10 file, third one down. Okay. And now we're going to choose the file. There it is. And we'll say open. And, you know, if you had more than one file, you would see it there. And so now we're going to do, this is very much like that same control that we had when we did triangulate and contour. But if we look now at the, let's go to the triangulate tab first, and let's make sure it says erase previous contour entities. For some reason, that's not sticking. Just say all contour entities. That should do it. I don't know why it's not. All right, so that should get rid of these. And if it doesn't, if it doubles us up, we'll go back and I'll show you how to get around that issue. All right, so look next at the contour tab. And now down in the middle to the left opposite the picture, instead of no smoothing, turn on Bezier smoothing. And that little slider on the right underneath the picture is a smoothing factor. You know, you can make it more smoothing to the right, less smoothing to the left. And if you make it all the way to the right, the possibilities exist that you could smooth something so much it crosses one of the other contours. So, you know, in this case, they're pretty well defined. I would go about the 3/4 mark. Okay. And I would say okay to that. And now it should, and it's not going to, I don't think. Go ahead and hit enter. It asks for the inclusion parameters. That was that boundary, but we don't have to reselect it because it only goes to the edges of the surface anyway, that the file you saved. So you can hit enter for this one as well. And now you see what it did. And it kept those up there. So so here's the ones that you just now drew. You see how they're much smoother, but of course there's more data. You know, see, that was just real simplistic, but this made a smoother line. Now, because it did not erase those, and again, that's a bug. But what we're going to do is we're going to erase by layer, and we're going to either choose the icon on the layers toolbar or go to edit, erase by layer. Okay, and now you see that those are the layers that I had selected from back when we were looking at it earlier. And so CTR and CTR index are already defined. So go ahead and just hit OK. Otherwise, you could hit clear or pick it from the screen, that kind of stuff. All right, so now that's taken out of the way, and let's go back and redraw the contours. So that was surface, contour from tin file. Use the surface, and now on the smoothing, let's run that all the way up to the far right. I think we'll be in good shape there. It'll give us a little bit more. We'll see if it gave us any goofies. And I think anything else I might want to look at. Nope, that should be good. Go ahead and say okay. And now it's asking you to, because it still says use inclusion, you can just hit enter because there's no boundary other than the boundary that's already there in the file anyway, and there's no exclusions. And now there's your contour map. And you can see these are noticeably smoother, you know, and if you found that you needed to move any of those labels, you can do that from that contour utility. But this shows you a nice little hilltop, comes down pretty much the way you probably are aware of that ground being out there on the ground. And you can see there's a hole. And you could even have put, see, this is actually what's called a depression contour, because that has an elevation here of 371. And this has an elevation, I would guess, of 372. There we go. And you could turn that one spot on and leave that as a spot. You know, so some of those points that you have, if we turn that, turn those layers back on, what was it? It was, I guess, this layer here will turn the symbols and that back on. So, you know, you could leave that point as a spot elevation if you wanted to. You know, you can dress that up. In fact, any of these you can show as spot elevations, but they're sort of, you know, the contours are indicating. You could leave this one on, you know, the spot up on the top of the hill, the spot down here in the hole. You could even, let's do another erase by layer real quick. And if we did contour from 10 file. On our contours, you've got depression contours in here where you could highlight depression contours, and you could do them by putting them on a layer. Now, we had the other starting with CTRS or CTR as a prefix, so I'm going to maybe call that CTR depress. And then you could use a line type. You could select, any particular line type. I don't see a line type.
Oh, really, the depression is outside of their area of interest anyway, so it probably doesn't matter.
All right. So in any case, if we did it like so, we could do that. No inclusion, no exclusion. And then there's that. It was an ill-defined line type anyway. So let's set that CTR depression layer for CTR. And let's make that dashed. Dashed 2. Set that to be that like 0.2. And then we could put that 0.59 and 0.85 we could make on a separate layer. So if we freeze off that topo layer, that's our points. Oh, we told it to got to get rid of the mark also. And now, oh gosh, I forgot was 59. Do you remember this point number up here?
I do not.
Okay. '85. So 59 and 85. So we could then locate points. And we're just going to do those 59 and 85. We're going to put this on a layer called spot elevations. And we'll change that to be, instead of a plus, we'll do an X. We will draw range of 59 and 85. And now, with those, I'm going to show you a trick. We look at that, remember the symbol, no, draw. These, I guess we had to have done it first. Just going to get rid of those, and let's redraw those again. But let's go to our points default. I thought we could have changed this here, but apparently not. But this attribute layout ID, like this, and if we turn off the point numbers and descriptions and say okay, and now go back to draw locate, spot elevation, draw range 59 and 85. So why didn't the elevations turn on? Oh, well. Think about those defaults. What did I turn? Did I turn off the elevation? No, there it is. All right, descriptions, elevations. Let's do, oh, I know what I need to do. There's no set. And let's do. Now we'll do a draw range. Let's see, draw descriptions, elevation, everything's good. Draw range 59 and 85. All right, so now we've got a little spot elevation with a description, which if we freeze these individual layers now, the point number, oh, I did isolate, sorry. We freeze the point number and the description. We have what looks like a spot elevation. In fact, that, let me change the color. That would be an elevation. Spot elevation. Let's go ahead and make it just so you can see it here on the screen. Two decimal places, but you can change that here individually. And do the same thing here. And so that way he's got a nice spot that sort of gets him to where he's looking to be, even though it's outside the range of what's looking for. All right, so there you've got a nice little label that's in the style of most contour maps that show spot elevations. You might, bump it up a little bit above the exits, however that looks like, that should work for what you need to do. That will.
Let me ask you another question. I'm gonna have to bring those trees in and label them. I don't have them labeled in the computer, but I have them labeled in my field book. Because I
Okay.
actually went through, identified each one. You know, a good symbol used for a tree?
Yeah. Trees. So, and I know that sounds flippant, I'm sorry. So let's now one thing, and I'll let you do this later. You can define these contour lines.
Yeah.
In fact, if you, let's see, what were they on CTR? So the index and the intermediates, you can change this type. See, there's a contour.
Yeah.
For that, for the index. And then for the intermediates, there's a contour 2. Okay, and then you can also change their colors. Let's make the index ones, say this shade of gray, and the intermediates will make just that next shade darker. And so now when you look at that, you've got, something like that. Maybe even bump up the line weights a little. Let's see, CTR again. The index, let's make it say 0.2, and CTR will make 0.05. Now you won't really see that very well here on the screen, well, it shows up pretty nicely, yeah. But then the PDF will make that nice and clean and show these as nice existing contour lines, typically done as dashes. Okay. And then you see back over to here. It's this at 120. Okay. It's PS LT scale on. Yes. Okay. So anyway, so that gives that. Now let's go back to our model, and you've got some points that you need to bring in the trees. So let's make a tree group so we can keep them on a separate layer. So go up to your points menu, and first of all, go back to points default, and let's change that back to the way points default. There you go. And let's make sure we got everything reset. The
on trees.
Well, you can leave that set here, but then turn it off when you draw locate.
Okay.
But go to the attribute layout ID. It's the little pull down that says 3, and you can choose, 1 or 2, whatever, however you like your points to look, whatever by default. If you choose 1, that's point number centered over the top, elevation off to the right, description centered on the bottom. That's fine. 2 is everything's lined up, left, justified, off to the side of it. So however you like it normally to be set. And then you could give a layer for the points, which you can also change when you get to the draw locate point command. Either way, you can do it here or do it when you draw locate. So this is just setting defaults.
Okay.
All right, so we'll say okay. Now let's go to the points menu and make a group.
That's on draw locate.
Well, no, because we want to make a point group out of trees, don't we?
Yeah.
All right, so go to points, and it's the last right. Yeah, there you go. And you want to create. And up there where it says group name, just type trees.
I dropped my mouse.
Uh-oh.
I hate it when that happens.
Poor mouse.
Find my poor mouse. Good grief, where did it go? I have to be careful moving around there. Don't step on it.
Yeah.
We're under the desk. Hopefully it's still working.
It appears to be. So
Okay.
there you go. So now you want to uncheck include all. And now just in your description, if they all say tree, you could just check that and type tree, or you can set from list and look at your list. And if some might say tree with a different description, like if you said,
Let me look here. I've actually got the, in my field book, I've got the point number labels from 70 through 81.
okay, and they're all, like if you were to say set from this list, so we come down here and say 70. So there's 70, and it goes down through 81. There's 82 is a tree also.
Yeah, okay.
So I would say, set by description. If you say tree, then in fact, I'm going to sort by description Just make sure you don't have anything that says like tree 2, tree 3, any of that kind of stuff. So I see there's tree. Looks like that's it. So I just get one of those, say okay. And now that's going to give you there. You save it. And now trees is 70 through 82, unless that happens to not be a tree. You said 81, but that's in your field book.
I don't have an 82 listed in my field book, so if there is an 82, I don't know what it is, so.
Okay. All right, so no problem. So now we're going to say, okay, we've made our group and we'll take a look at it. Let's go back down here and zoom back into where we are. And now let's draw locate, and we're going to put them on a trees layer, and we're going to use a tree symbol. And so now for the symbol, up there where it says symbol name, we choose that. And now where it says points, if you pull that category down and choose trees.
Ah,
Okay, and so there's all kinds of different trees. So if you shot like oak trees versus pine trees versus whatever, you could choose something. But if it's just a generic tree, you know,
just
that,
a generic tree, is there one that looks better than another?
well, I think 7 looks better than 6, but maybe even that tree 11. And you can scroll down and see some more down below. You can see there's, you know, like, I don't see any particular one that might stand out there. You know, if it's going to an architect, they had those kind of cutesy looking ones like 23 or 24. You know, there's a whole number of different things you can use.
Well, I'll make mine more generic. I'm sure he'll go through and do whatever he needs to do.
Yeah, so I would either use 7 or 11. All right, so 7. Now, before you do that, make sure you look at the size, the symbol size scalar, that 0.08. That's going to make it, you know, 8, just under 1/10 of an inch when it plots. So you might want to bump that up here, and that's down below the symbol size scale. Yeah, you might want to make that something like 0.15, or, you know, and then I would leave the text size scalar alone, and then change your layer name to be on a layer called, you're not going to find it yet because it doesn't exist. Just type it, just trees, and then say okay. And now you're going to draw a group. And choose trees. And say okay. And so now you need to go and let's change the layer color for trees. Instead of red, let's make it green. If that might actually be the mark. So I don't know what layer tree is. Well, you're actually just changing. Go ahead and you see what now if you escape and look at what you've done. So you didn't really affect it because it's on its own separate layer.
Okay,
So let's go, yeah, go to the layer definition and go up there in the top. Well, okay, you can scroll down and find it too, but up there where it has this asterisk up here in the top, if you know you're only looking for tree type things, if you put asterisk, tree, asterisk, if you got these two things. So the layer trees itself is red, as is trees mark, which is the symbol. So I would change both of those to be green. All right, that should fix it. There you go. Now you can freeze the layers and get rid of, you know, I don't know what you want to freeze off. The point number and elevation.
I don't need, well, I need the point number until I label them. I don't need any elevation for sure.
Okay. So go to your freeze by pick, that little ice or snowflake. Yeah, there you go. And pick the elevation so that that gets frozen. Now, and the labels, like, I mean, you could at some point turn your point numbers off if you wanted to, but you know, you can freeze that individually in your viewports, or you can freeze it here.
I need the one until I go through and label each tree.
Oh, I see, to match what you've got. Yes, okay, so good.
Yeah.
So that as it is. And then when you do this, there's two approaches. You can go through here and double click, let's say 0.70, and you get your field note and you say that's a 24-inch oak. You can type that right here, 24
Yep.
inch, or whatever. Okay. Or you could actually edit the points themselves, and everywhere it says tree, you would say 24-inch oak, and 18-inch pine, whatever you've got in there, and then redraw the points, and they would show up there. You wouldn't have to do those individual clicks. Now, if you were to do that, if you were to change those descriptions in the coordinate file, then your point group would no longer match here, but you could say, we know that was 70 through 82. So we could turn that off and just say point list 70 through 82. And so now it still says description, but we just redefined the group. So now if you change this in the coordinate file description, you'll have them from then on, and you don't ever have to go back and double click and make the drawing description separate, but you would redraw the group so that it would put down the new description. Follow
Like
what?
we'll do that on points edit.
Correct.
Okay.
And yeah, do it there, and it brings up the spreadsheet, and you can just go down through there and just bang, 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 save it, and then read. I think, let me see, if we change this, I don't think it will, excuse me, I'm going to come down to 71 and 72 just for yucks. I'm going to call that
Well, here, I'll tell you what it is.
okay.
Which one are we on?
71.
It's a 1.6 foot DBH black cherry.
Did I get there right? EBH?
Yep.
Okay.
DBH, diameter breast height.
Oh, I got you. DBH. There we go. And so you could, spell that out any way you want to do it. And then, let's say 72.
72 is the 1.6 foot DBH black cherry.
And you could put BLK, however you want to make this.
Oh, wait a minute, I gave you the wrong identification for 71.
Okay.
71, it's a 4-foot DBH tulip poplar.
Okay. So now, if you save and exit, oh yeah, so it will update automatically. You're not even going to have to redraw them. Now you could, and then, if you need to move these around, you just select it and, move that to wherever it makes better sense. Okay.
Right.
And you could even, there's all kinds of ways you can turn that into an in-text block to where you could get 2 lines out of it, or if they're all DBH, you might list over in the general notes that tree diameters are, listed as diameter at breast height, that kind of stuff. Abbreviating those things. It just, I'll leave that up to you on how you want to do it.
Let me ask you another question here while you're getting ready to leave.
I'm not. No, I'm in good shape.
Okay. If I'm going from one plat to another and say I want to copy something from this page
Yes.
to the topo page.
Right. Okay.
Do I do that just the regular way, like I would change it from one drawing to another?
Yes, and I can see one thing you might want to pay attention to is right here. See that? Because that's on boundary,
Yeah,
and you see that dash line, which shows up now. So I would put that. Do we have a bar scale?
should have a bar scale, yeah.
There we go. So, little things like that, just make sure. And yeah, so if anything that you want to do here, you would select and then clipboard, copy with base point, maybe give it this corner point so you can snap it to the same location. Or you could even just copy and paste and position it by eye. But that's let's say we go clipboard by corner point, we go to that corner. Okay. Now this is something that's in paper space. So I'm in paper space when I do it.
Right.
And then I go back over to here. And let's say if this were now gone, I think I got everything. I also want to make sure this gets fixed here too. And then you would just clipboard, and when you say paste, it's going to ask for an insertion point. You just grab that same point that you used, and that references it exactly where it came from.
Okay.
Okay. Of course, that can be moved and everything done around. And that's actually shaping up to be quite nice, I think. Now, we want to, this is turned. We need to fix that. That was that depression contour. So that was CTR. Depression. We'll make that also at 0.05, so it's not heavy. And if there's a line style that you could use for depression contours, and that has a little tick marks in it, so you could do something like that particular one. If you had the line style predefined, you can assign it to a layer. We don't.
Now, where that topo is crossing there, isn't that, oh, it's not crossing, okay.
It's because it was these were all whole shots, and it's sort of, that's where that particular elevation happens to wrap.
Yeah, it was an optical illusion there for a minute. I
Yeah.
thought it was crossing.
Yeah, and and here's something, I don't generally recommend this to people, but I'll tell them sometimes. You could, because again, it's just a polyline. See, it's a piece of a polyline. You could go ahead and just break that and say, let's break it from here around to that end, and it will then keep from being when I've got I don't know why exactly it didn't make it continuous. It should have, but in any case, you could just join it one to the other. It probably had something to do when we did the smoothing, because it wound up breaking. All right, so there's that. Now you could, and it's probably not worth chasing down because it's just the one, but under the annotate menu with line types, if you change this line type, and I don't think there's one called depression. I'm looking over here in the pictures, and I'm looking for one that just shows a line with a little tick on it, like this that says fault, but that I don't want the diamond on it. And I don't know that there's any particular, maybe that slope 1 might work. We'll take a look at that one. You might even use that V. I think that's slope 1. If I choose that, whoops. Crap. All right. So before we choose it, and I'll go ahead and set on it, but I want to set my spacing scalar to be that my symbol size like that. I'll make 0.8. My spacing, I'm going to say every ½ inch. We'll see what this looks like. We'll say, okay, we'll pick this. And now there it's made the symbol correctly, but we're going to tweak it a little bit here. So my symbol size scalar is a little bit too small. Let's make it double that. The spacing scalar is probably, let's make it just a little bit bigger at 3/4. And we'll find that slope 1. We'll say okay, and we're going to choose this. Now you're going to notice, well, depression contours typically point to the inside, point to the downhill. Well, the reason it's pointing to the outside is because that line type is defined as a straight line and a little tick mark either above or below. So it's gone the opposite direction because the direction of this polyline tells it which way it's going from start to end. So all we have to do to fix that is to simply reverse. And that's this reverse polyline on the toolbar up here.
Yeah.
Or even under edit, polyline utilities, reverse polyline. And so when I choose that, you see what it did?
Yeah.
It just turned it right around. And now you could do that and even set those to be a little bit bigger even than what we did. So line type, change polyline line type. Again, we'll sit on this slope 1. And instead of 0.16, let's go ahead and bump that up to 0.3. And let's even space it just a little bit further apart. We'll say, okay, we'll pick this. And now you've got a nice looking little depression contour.
Hey, let me ask you a question or make a
And
comment
it
here.
responds
Normally, I wouldn't
to,
give a
we
spot
are
elevation
in
to.
topo,
Can you
so
hear
that's
me?
at 20 scale.
Hello,
Final plat would
can you
be
hear me? Hello?
probably not able to see it because it's, again, responding to that scale. I've also got the line weights are really tough on here. Let's see, what is that on? So if I'm inside, that was something like spots. And if we look at the line weight, it's default, 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 default. One so much darker looking than the other. And let me take a quick peek at this definition. My page set up. Do I have to scale line weights? Let me see if that will fix what we're looking at. No. Entity line weights. That didn't. Color. Object line weight, that should work. But in this one, see, that's more like what I'd like to see. Span has an annotate 120. Under 100.
Can you hear me yet?
Points. Let me see. I know one. When we did draw locate points. Whoops. Hey, Michael, I'm sorry.
You can't
Now-
hear me anymore.
Yeah, now I can. Let me hang up the phone a second. All right, so I'm gonna hang up the phone. Can you speak?
Hello?
And let me see if I can hear you.
Hello?
Now I got you.
Okay. I wasn't really gonna show the topo on the merger, the final plat, just on the topo. Do you
Okay.
think that's a mistake?
No. I think that's fine. I think that I think it's probably best. We've
For one
got
thing, I'm gonna have to dimension all of those lines.
yeah, so we've got yeah, so these things I would turn them off just entirely. And again, to do that just within here, you're going to double click here and then freeze those layers. You don't want to freeze them globally because they'll go away in the other viewport. So now you could say free, now that I'm in the viewport, I'm going to freeze the layer and I'm just going to do a crossing like this to get all of those and that one. And also this. There we go. So that's going to do that. And now when we're over here, we're still going to see them.
Okay, now I can also delete that or turn off that line, that area to be topoed line.
Yes. In fact, that could be done globally. And that
Right.
is on topo area. And this being a point, is that also on, that's on boundary? I
That
would
can be on
just,
topo area. It doesn't have to be on boundary.
yeah, let's go ahead and change those and put everything on. Let's see what we have. We've got the 2 points. So we'll put that on topo area. And then we'll just go globally and freeze that topo area, which we come up here and just start typing TOPO area. We'll just freeze it globally. So that'll be there for that one. And over on our topo map, we're now going to no longer see that. We'll see it like this. There was one thing.
Oh, there was one thing I was gonna say on the elevation.
Yes.
Normally I wouldn't give a spot elevation to 100th of a foot.
Okay.
Is there any way we can?
Yeah. Just double click it. First of all, double click inside the viewport so that you're in it. Now double click the point. And you see where it says elevation decimals? Yeah. There you go. And then go up to the top one and do the same thing for that. There you go.
Okay.
And now, one thing I did notice too, when we were looking at it back in the 100 scale side, you see that contour line goes across your boundary line?
Yeah.
We generally want the contour lines to always be underneath everything.
Right.
So again, we're in the model. So what we're going to do is we're going to select, go ahead and pick on pick on the index line. Now right click and choose select similar, first of all. Now click on that draw order to the back. Now do the same thing with one of the intermediates. Right click, select similar. Draw order to the back. And you could do that little depression contour because it's on its own separate layer, but you know, there's nothing that it conflicts with. So,
Right.
all right. So that is worth a save. And I think the rest of those are some edits you can start adding to it. And I think that would be
Hey,
a
could we
fun
bring in the GIS topo now and see
Yes,
what it
yes,
was?
yes. Yeah, I knew there was something. I'm sorry, I think.
Do you?
Uh,
I don't remember how to do that. I remember that you went out and you found the tiles and you pick a tile.
yeah. I still got a problem with this thing. Not There's something going on with this styling here. But if I look at it over here on the final side, what does it look like? That's okay. Just keep an eye on that pattern scaling and adjust it if you need to by selecting that line and changing that line type scale. Let me make sure. Oh, that was the problem. Daggone it. All right. We set the scale back up here with that, and I neglected to change it. So let's put that back to say 0.5 is what I think of. Yeah. So now, yeah, that's better. Now though, we had that nice dash business. So what I'm going to do is select all of these contours. Let's see, have they ever fixed this to where if I did a select similar, it's going to get all of them? Yes, they did. All right, and I'm going to change that individual line type scale. I'll make it so that when it does draw, it let's change that to say 0.2. Make sure so now there, that's why that kept screwing that up. So I want to change this one now. We'll go back to our slope 1. And we'll set our spacing to be 0.5 and our size to be 0.12. We'll see what that looks like. So 1. Closer together here and 8. That's a little better. All right. There we go. Now, let's go take a peek at bringing our contours in. And we did that from our GIS.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we did our GIS data, and we just is this one that do you get these from a folder that we stored the data in, or do you go out and grab it? Do you remember that much?
I don't.
All right, so let me look if,
And it's on the state website. It's on the
oh,
WVU.
okay, good. Then that's going to be one of these, either the web feature service or the ARC GIS service.
And you save Jefferson County. You already imported all of Jefferson County somewhere, I think. No,
As
no, that's the photograph. I'm sorry. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah, right. So if we look at a couple of different things, the web feature service. Let's go from say here to here. And see what they give us. Now we have that's the FEMA, whatever the NFHL map server happens to be, that gives us all this data, which that's mostly flood stuff, it looks like.
Yeah, no, it was a West Virginia University thing.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure of it.
All right, so this has nothing. There's low confidence topographic. We don't want that. So let's cancel this. And instead of that one, which was the web feature service, it's going to be an ArcGIS service, maybe. And this is the NGS topo. See what
That's
that.
the one we use. That's the one we use for the location inset.
Yeah, and I think that's just an image map. We'll just call this junk for now. That doesn't give us, or does it, the contour? No, that doesn't. Okay. So we will just undo that. That is the contour map, but that's from the GIS stuff. Or I'm sorry, from like a quad sheet. All right, so
It was a thing where there were tiles and you had to pick the tile.
well, that's okay. There we go. I remember that. So that is import GIS data, and that was a shape file. Okay, so now to select these files, we're going to browse to wherever we kept that. West Virginia GIS data. There's your 2-foot contours.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be Jefferson. And there's our tiles, okay. So let's get the index in there first. Where do we have it? There
There's
it is.
the index.
And we'll say open. And we just want the geometry. I guess we need the data. And we'll just put them on the same layer. JS imports fine, use inclusions. Now apply coordinate transformation. We don't need to do that, I don't think, as long as you're in state plane. Use attributes to assign. Let's just import the polylines. Failed to get the database name. All right. Let's look at our settings, first of all. Our GS features file, we're going to just make a new one. And we're going to call that one, what is this, Bell. And we'll put it in here. So our database then is going to be Carlson. We'll also call that one Bell. And say okay. And say okay. Now we import a shape file and we select Jefferson tile index. Geometry with the data. Layer that. We use an attribute of them. Yeah, that'll be fine. Use inclusions if we did. Don't need to see apply coordinate allowed lat long to grid, UTM to grid. And we'll let it attach the point GIS links, either one of those, it shouldn't matter. Say okay. So entity ID will be the ID. We don't need the elevation. So there we go. Now that's going to be all within this particular tile. So all we need to do is find out what that tile is. So if we look at the GIS data, I want to label my GIS data inside. No, GIS inspector, that should be all I need. So now the entities that we want, let's just grab several of them so we can see. And we want the I don't know if it was a zone or not. Let's see. Let's just take them all over and see what it says. All right, so that's going to be zone 18. letter S, and TJ 6457. The NGS name is, or USNG name is 18STJ 6457. So 186457. No, let's see. No, they're all 186457. I don't see the 4388. I don't see these changing. Is it on? Let's try. J 64. 6457. Maybe the tile is bigger than that, than those four areas. That may be. So there's 6457. All right. And I'll bring the data across. Use the point ID or entity ID for no, let's not use that. It's just use the elevation, set the elevation, import the polylines. Imported 501 polylines. Well, that didn't work so well. Right, then, okay, that's 18 STJ 6457. So what is that? Oh, I see. I assumed those were. No, maybe not. So feature, maybe. All right, now let's see if we can't. It's 18 STJ 6457. STJ
Would the
6457.
cell ID be it?
No, because remember the names that we were looking at the file to load
Yeah,
were the 18 STJ 6457, and this is identifying everything as being that same 6457, but 6457 was just this one up here. Let's see. Let me fix something here a minute. I'm going to clear my erase by layer, select from screen. Bring the tile. I may not have indexed that tile correctly. If we import the tile index, which is here. Geometry with the data. Use the feature name. Use the attribute, use inclusions, apply close, okay. There should be no elevation. Entity ID. See if that will do it. Now, if we look at our inspector, now Jefferson tile index. That, yeah, 18S TJ 5647, 5847. There we go. So 5647. Now we'll import this shape file. We're going to get 5647. That could have been my goof before. So 50.
There it is, up there, 5647, right there.
Right there. And at that, we will use the, let's just put this on a layer. Oh, yeah, that's fine. And we'll set the elevation. To set the elevation, import the polylines. You can see how yours shape out to be, with the exception of these where they cut back. See how these are going this
Yep.
way?
Yeah. Now that's interesting. Those were supposed to be 2-foot contour. Well, they are 2-foot contours.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Yours are ones.
Yeah.
So I would be happy with most of this, with that one little exception here, and that's because we didn't have any data in there and it just sort of peeled it back. So you might think these are okay from here. I would say from here up, maybe you could do, and remember that the solid whites are theirs, these are ours. So I'm good with this one of ours and this one of ours, but this one should probably come back here. So I would say from this point on, I would say, we might want to sort of reshape those, and I would do that by this. I'm going to just draw a 2D polyline, and we're going to make it red. I'm going to put it on a layer called line. And I'll show you what we're going to do. We're not really going to trim it. We're just going to sort of mark where we're going to start to make some edits. And I think just down to there is fine. Okay.
Okay. How about that area in the back there where we had a big open space? That looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think this, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
Because it sort of follows the trends. So I would leave those. I think it's just these little ones here, and I would take this and I'm going to add a couple of vertices. One I'm going to put like up in here, maybe one here, one over here. Let's see, maybe. Now this, maybe this one's a little much. All right, so what I'm gonna do is sort of use that as a little, I could cut those off, but I don't really want to cut them off. I want to sort of reshape them in here. So I really bring that up to there. And leave. So put one more up here. Ish, because let's see, this contour is ours at 385. Theirs at 386. And then there's their 384. So our 384 is going to go from there. We'll straighten it out. Our 385 will straighten it out also there as well. So we'll take this guy and don't really need them. And then this should be 386 to their 386. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so we're in good shape. We just need to knock off the trend line from where that got chopped. And I would do that by this. We're going to do a command here, Mike, called editing. We're going to edit the contour line itself. And that does nothing to the surface file. We're just fixing the geometry of the closer. We're just changing the geometry or the shape of these drawn lines.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back to survey. We're going to go to surface.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Did you have a particular question or?
No. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't disappeared into the dim mists of time.
Ah, okay, gotcha. All right, so we're going to do this command called edit contours. Now, what this is going to let us do is we're going to select the contour to edit. I'm just going to take this first one, for instance, right here. I'm going to select that contour, use updates triangulation to match the edit. Oh, wow, I started to say that's not going to change the surface file, but let's say, yeah, let's fix the triangulation. And we're going to, and so we're going to start right there, and then we're going to come down to, say here, just anywhere here. And I'm just sort of continuing in that sort of straight here, and then enter to end. Let's see if that fixes it. Pick the reconnection point on the contour. And yeah, see, that didn't. All right, what I was hoping that we have to be able, we have to reconnect back into the original contour, and we're not doing that because we want to change the end of it. So let's do it this way. Let's just draw some 2D polys.
2D or 3D?
Just 2D. I'm just going to use these to join, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So we'll ignore that one. That one's okay. We'll just take this one, say from, I'm just going to pick on a line there and just come out here and just end it right there. Then I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to go from somewhere back on this side of here and sort of keep coming out here and just sort of end it like that. I'll do the same thing again for this one. I'll get in here and sort of sort of follow that, but then keep that coming more straight. So I'm sort of following this little trend kind of thing here. And so I'll go again. I'm going to get back here somewhere behind. And I'll just keep this one again coming like so. And now I want to start flaring out more parallel to that line. In fact, I might even fix that a little bit here in a minute. So, but I'm just going to keep this command running. We'll come here and sort of depart a ways. Again, following that trend of these that's sort of my trend line. Start that one over again. Now, you notice what I'm doing is I'm snapping to these existing contours so that I'm going to do that because we're going to join these contours here in a minute. So that one is basically, right on that contour. So I can go ahead and just pick that, and then I'll shift and pick nearest and just sort of do that one. I'll do the same thing from here. I'll grab, I think we're in good shape with that. And we'll just come down here and say, here's here. We're sort of at the edge of our limit. I skipped one, sorry. So I'll come here and just sort of eyeball the difference between the two. Now, is that proper engineering surveying work? Probably not, but we're not doing anything down there. I'm not all that concerned about it. So I'm going to come here, and again, we're coming down, just sort of splitting the difference here.
Well, a topo is just an approximation, and we have more data now. We have a GIS map that's based on LiDAR.
That's exactly right. And so,
so I would say it is proper.
Well, I mean, is it as accurate as it could be? No, we could go out there and survey the heck out of that, but that's sort of beyond the scope of what we're trying to do. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, the anal engineer in me would say, yeah, we could make it a little bit closer. All right, so I could say just right in there somewhere. And I'll get one more to do here. We're getting this guy, and then we're bringing that down, just sort of eyeballing the difference between those two. Again, I think this one's correct. We do need to get this oh, we do have that last one. Okay. So now we've got some edits that we can make. We can now get rid of our GIS data.
So just freeze it.
No, I would erase by layer unless you particularly want to have that all in your file.
No, I don't.
But I would, because you can add it back later. I'm going to clear this and then select from the screen. And I'll just go ahead and get a crossing so I get the grids and at least one of each of those. Boy, we may have a bunch of others to get rid of. Let's see. I think that got everything we needed. We're clear there. Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff here. If we these layers, 18ST. I don't know if we clear that. Can we use wildcards? 18ST star. Yeah, how about that? All right, so now what we're going to do is join these up to these, but we're also going to need to trim these things, these existing ones back. So we're going to take this line and we're going to move the vertices up to wherever that edge is. And make it, excuse me, make it into a trim line. We'll need to add one in here. Add one in here. Oops. Missed. Let's get the end point. This will be a little faster. I'm going to change the settings on these to just grab the endpoint. You had perpendicular and extension, so I'll set this back in a second here. All right, so I'm there. I'm going to now add a vertex. To there. It'll should become evident what I'm doing here when we get to the end of this. If I grab now the end point of that red line, there we go. So what I'm doing with these is I'm putting these right where these red lines end so that I can trim the existing contours that we drew against that line. And then we will join these new little endpoints that we created and have it work accordingly. Now that one I can actually remove. All right, so now I've got that as my cutting line. And I'm going to edit. So we break by crossing polyline. I don't think we, yeah, so we break by crossing polyline. Or, you know what, I'm just going to use the standard trim command. Edit, trim. So here is our cutting entity. And we're going to just trim off all of these little existing contours. So now that's going to make this where these endpoints go to endpoints, and I now no longer need this. I'll get rid of him. But I need to join those onto those lines. Now, to make those take on the same characteristic as the line we're joining, so we don't have to change layers and all that later. If you go, I'm gonna let you drive here so you see where the switches are. Go up to the,
Can't do the paint match properties.
well, you could, but they're still gonna be separate. I want to join them so it's one continuous line.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna join nearest, and that's, there you go. But now look at these switches. And right now we say directly connect. That's okay because we're endpoint to endpoint now because we trimmed against it. But you see the where we say join only identical line types, layers, and elevations. You want to uncheck all three of those. And then you want to elevate 0 elevations when joined to elevate. So there we go. And we're going to say okay. Now we are going to pick these one at a time. So, but wait. What you do first though is the last one you pick is the one it's going to inherit. So pick the red part first. Okay, and now pick that upper part. And now hit enter. Okay, and now if you select that and look at its elevation, you'll see that it has now, it's all one continuous line and it kept the elevation. See, it elevated that 0 line that we drew. Okay.
Yeah.
So escape that and let's repeat the command. And you have to do that, run the command, hit enter. Yeah, you can click OK or just hit enter, either one. Click that, hit enter again to repeat the command, hit enter to clear the dialog. Now pick red, pick dashed, enter, red, dashed, enter.
And that didn't do it.
Oh, okay, well, maybe we missed. So when you get a situation like that, you got to zoom down here. Ah, there we go. So we're going to use this line here to trim that. Now we can do it. So now we go back to press the up. Yeah, okay, you can do that. Enter, red, dash, enter. Enter to repeat, enter to OK, red dashed. You get the idea, and I'll let you finish that. What? Yeah. See, normally you could do all this stuff like pick all the reds first and then pick the other ones, but the problem is it gets them out of order and some of the gray ones will become the red ones. So you don't want that to happen. That's why we're doing these 2 at a time.
Oops, I missed.
That's all right. There you go. And that's it. And now,
Let me do a save real quick.
yes, sir. So now I would say you've got yourself a very well done topographic map. Particularly for open ground. But if you were doing a parking lot in a new shopping center, you got to get those curb edges and all the hard edges. You got to survey those and connect them up and make them into brake lines. Otherwise you'll have a mess.
Right.
So
So I've probably got enough, well, let's see, it's 1:10. You still have a little more time?
I do. Let me double check here because there was
And
something.
what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah, that's what I was double checking because I had something that I had to go to and I think it's gotten moved. So tomorrow is wide open. I had a I had a webinar today. I thought at 1 o'clock, but apparently it was at 1 a.m. I see it was a Bentley thing and it came out of Singapore, which is why it's at 1 a.m. So I'll just catch the recorded version of that. Silly me. Everybody else is asleep at 1 a.m. I'm still up, but I'm working on crap, so I didn't have time. All right, so that clears that. Tomorrow is Thursday. Oh, yeah, I know what it is. Tomorrow I've got to be. Oh, I didn't have it in my calendar is the problem. Let's see. Tomorrow is, let me find this. Gateway Clipper. That board's at 5:30, so 4:30. I'm good till 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, I have a meeting I've got to go to in town at 1:30. I have to leave here by probably 1 o'clock to be there. So why don't we go from 9 to 12?
That'll work for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okie doke. Let me clear this and see, and you did a save and look at there. Boy, you sure did some nice work there, Mr. Mike. And that should get your architect what he needs. And should he even, and I doubt most of these architects don't have the capability, but should they need, oh, now here's a situation that you'll see sometimes. You see that the gap doesn't look like it's been preserved like it
right.
it did before. So you need to select those and select similar and then bring them to the front or bring them above. I don't think it's going to let me do these individually, but maybe. Let's see. Let's try this. Move that if I want the wipe out to go. Under that. And now put this to the back. There we go. So what has happened is because we made all those edits, we wound up screwing up the orders. So I'm going to select all of these and send them to the back again. And that should put them underneath the wipeouts. Of course, let's do this again. Select similar. And let's select the wipeout only. That's what I did by pulling that down. I will send that to the back. And then I'm going to select, and that puts it underneath the text label. So now I'm going to select all of these and send them to the back, which will then put them under the wipeout. If I reach in, Oh, come on. Do this over in model space. Let's see. Huh. All right. Stop. Where's my, all right. Down here. Let me have control of it here a sec. Oh, I'm lagging really bad. Oh crap. All right, now. Let me get on contour index, select similar, and of those, let me take the wipeouts. No, let's first take everything and send it to the back. And now, if we select similar and take only the wipeouts and send them to the back. Why is it doing that for those up there?
Maybe sending it to the back or sending it to the front.
So there's everything, and I put them. Well, see, I sent them to the front that time. Let's see, do I just need a regen? No. It's like similar. I want just the wipeouts. You know what? It's not doing my selection correctly. So I think what I need to do is this. I'll do a quick select. The entire drawing, and I'm going to choose wipeout. And I'll select them all. And I'll send just the wipeouts to the back. There we go. Now, I'll select similar on the index contour lines and send them to the back so they go under the wipeouts. Now, look back to here. Everything's good to go there. Yeah, sorry. I thought when I pulled that list down up here in this no selection that it would work on that as a selection set. Apparently it did not.
Do a quick save.
Yep. So now we're back to there. Let me get out of that viewport. Not that it hurts anything to be in that viewport. I just like to typically do that. Now let me double check my line type scale is still at 1. Okay. I think that's good. Now we're going to go 9 o'clock again tomorrow morning, right?
Okay.
Okie doke. I will again save that. I will relinquish my control. And I will stop our recording.